The TW meta is an egg. I've decided to go on a journey. Aldous Sandflys is leaving port. 100 million GP, 200 million GP, 300 million GP, and so on. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Aldy's Journey. Today I'm going to talk in real detail about TW. I'm going to talk a lot about TW around the 100 million GP mark. And I'm going to show you the actual defenses that we faced. I'm going to talk about the implications of the game. And we're just going to go into a lot more detail. So you asked for it, I'm going to show you a lot of the teams, going to talk about some of them. But without further ado, let's go across. Let's go across. Where are we? Hi. Okay. So, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the TW we just had, what teams we faced, what my thoughts on those teams were. There'll be some comps in there we can talk about. But ultimately, we're going to talk about what this means for the game and what the actual meta is for the 100 million GP TW. Okay, first up, let's show you the front top. So this is the front top zone of TW. Here it is here in its entirety. But what I'll do, we'll now start sort of going through each team. Let me talk a bit about them. So a lot of relics. So this skill we faced was 125 million GP. And we were around the 100 million GP, so that's the kind of lock-in area we're talking about. 22 teams per zone. I should cover that off. So that's why it's 22. So this is the front top. Now, there are 7 GLs in this top, which is a lot. There is also a Riva with the Grand Inquisitor, including the Grand Inquisitor Omicron as well. So you have probably 8 teams here that are very difficult to beat. You've also got some really interesting teams. You've got a Marajade Omicron in here, which makes that team even better. Not on a Starkiller team in this case, but it's also got a dangerous sort of Omicron in there. And then you've got a few other teams sort of smattered in, bit of bugs. But ultimately, I think the point about this really is the quantity of relics and the quantity of GLs. There's a Ray in here with Ben and with a Raycron. There's a First Order in here. A SLKR in here with a First Order Datacron as well. So you can see the amount of Datacrons that are also being used. So yes, not the best, and not particularly an easy, shall we say, zone to clear. So that's the front top. I'll now show you the front bottom. Behave. Here we are. This is the front bottom zone. 4 GLs here. So a Leia, 2 Leias, another SLKR, and where's the third one? My fourth one. My eyes do not work today. And there's a GMK. So at 100 million GP, you're looking at people like in our guild who don't have GLs. We obviously, very impossible to almost get Bane at that level as well. So almost all of these teams are kind of unbeatable. Maybe that Bugs team there is probably the only one that you could probably actually have a look at. So what my guild decided to do was to go up top, thinking that we could take down the 7 GLs, unlock ships, because it looked as though the opponent had blocked on purpose. So behind the first zone, so we did clear the top. What did we do? So I had to do a lot of the heavy lifting in this, because the account that I have is able to maybe take down more of these teams. So we did Bane versus the third sister. I might show a little bit of that. We'll play that clip afterwards. So yeah, that's a team that there. I didn't actually say sort of almost on the up top there was also a Phasma Omicron as well, which is quite dangerous. So anyway, we did finally clear that front zone. So let's look at the next zone. Now, here it is here. Quite a drop off, you'll notice. We've gone from a sea of relics. Almost every single team has got relics on it. We have now gone to where there's only about 8 or 9 teams here who actually have relics. The other teams aren't bad, you know. There's Phoenix with Captain Rex. It is Jedi Knight Revan. It is Ewoks. It is Genosians. So the other teams here are very good. Don't get me wrong, but when you start seeing ones of 51,000, whereas the previous zone was 150, 160, it's quite a drop off. And we'll talk a little bit about why at the end of the video. But these are teams. You've even got a full relic boss Nass in here. But again, also no Datacrons. So I often say that people like to keep Datacrons in offense. Looks like it. So if you're short of Datacrons or don't have that many Datacrons, you tend to put them. You tend to keep a lot on offense, put some on defense. But here is a zone here. This is the second zone. So that I'll try to put a map up and show you where we are. This is the second zone. Obviously, we were able to then progress through this. There are some good teams in here. None of these comps are weird. You're still getting relatively good structured teams. So let's look at the zone behind this. We'll stick on characters just now. Here we are. So this is the third zone. Again, another large drop. You're starting to see more random, I shouldn't say random compositions, more of the starting characters come in, more of characters that can be beaten by even just a similar team, but with the right composition or the right counter. What else you got in here? Yeah, so you notice the drop off. We're now down to around 45, 50,000 for some of the teams. Still 1 or 2 relics in here. Still 1 or 2 teams just kind of in there, sort of to be cracked. But even those could probably be picked apart. I think a Qui-Gon Jinn could be picked apart. Certainly that Thrawn team. So I think at this point you're starting to notice that huge drop off from the start all the way through. And we'll just finish it off. I'll show you the very back zone, which is a sea of blue. And this is what you got on the very back. So look at that. Look at how much it changes. And that's why I'm kind of saying that the TW defenses are like eggs. They're incredibly hard to hit shell on zone 1's, the front and bottom of zone 1. But then once you crack through that, it just gets softer and softer and softer. And the drop off is quite drastic. Now, I should tell you that this guild did beat us. This guild also is undefeated in the last 3 months. It is only lost 1 in the last 6 months. So this strategy really is the meta. Unfortunately, and that's why I'm not a fan of it, but I'll talk a little bit maybe at the end why I'm not a fan of it and what I would do about it. But I just want to sort of say that the meta at 100 million GP, you block the both front zones, you put all your high people on the front, and you pray that they can't break through both top and bottom front zones, whilst you then go to work on offense. Just to complete the picture, I will show you the fleets. So this is the fleet zone that we faced. You'll notice 2 Leviathans in here, 2 Profundities, Executors, quite a frightening, and quite a lot of Negotiators. So quite the hard fleet, shall I say, quite the hard meta of fleets that are all in here. All of them at very high relic levels. We didn't clear this, so I'm not able to show you, but I think, as you can probably imagine, what was behind this was probably very, very poor. Was probably the leftovers. So, why is this the meta, and why is it bad for the game, in my opinion? Well, let me talk about my experience with this TW. So, when it started, you looked at the top front zones, and most of the guild look at that and go, I can't attack any of those. So that's, that's not for me. And they're right. These highly relic GL teams, when getting faced by somebody who isn't even a million GP yet, is just ridiculous. So I think that's the problem. But why did this guild do this? Why did they win so many, shall we say? Well, here's a graph of the GP distribution of this guild. Now, you'll notice they've got one GP of 12 million, another of around 11, and one of about 9.6. Now, at least 2 of those 3 accounts were most of the front zone. So 2 of those accounts at least went the full defense on the front 2 zones. They also were the entire front of the ship zones. So what you have in this guild is you have 3 large accounts who all basically block the front. Then you have the middle sort of guilds in there that are kind of filling in the middle and back. But yeah, that is how this guild is winning. That is just how this guild's doing it. And it's a viable strategy. I mean, it is allowed in the game. And that brings me on to probably where my concern is. If this is the meta at 100 million GP, if this is what you can do and this is how you should do it to win, and you can just keep winning, 1 loss in 6 months, win every single in 3 months, I don't see how that's really, it's encouraging this behavior, shall we say. It's encouraging guilds to either take in mercs from above in an alliance, or to have 3 or 4 people at a very, very high level join them. Now, when I started this journey, I had one rule. And that rule was, when I got to TW, I wasn't allowed to block the front 2 zones. I wasn't allowed to put SLKR with the SLKR cron, or Ray with the Holdo cron. I wasn't allowed to block the front 2 zones. So I basically said to myself, it would be unethical to do that because it would damage the enjoyment of other people in the game. Because other people want to enjoy the game, and if they have me blocking the zones and preventing their enjoyment of TW, then that's not good. That's not good for the health of the game. So, albeit, even though this strategy is quite clearly the meta and how to win, it is not necessarily healthy for the game. It will lead to many of the younger or smaller accounts just not taking part in TW, or taking part but only putting some people on the back so they get the rewards, but they have no intention of attacking. Now, that's not really what we want in TW. TW should be an entire guild attacking, entire guild defending. And I would have a suggestion. If they stick with the same board, or if they do all these things, I think CG should start to limit the number of defensive teams you can put down, or even limit the number of offensive teams you can put down, or offensive teams you can use. So I would be in favor of them saying, right, maximum 6 on defense and 8 to use on offense, something like that. And that would really prevent this. That would mean that to block out 44 things on the top and the bottom, you would need to have 44 divided by 6, just over 7 people at a very high level. So I think what that would do is really kind of prevent this strategy, prevent this sort of egg shell approach. And probably make TW more enjoyable for the middle GPs in the guild, and more enjoyable for the and more engagement for the people at the bottom of the guild, and less on people at the top. So food for thought. I hope you've seen some compositions, a lot of compositions there, maybe some ideas for your guild. But I have to say, having enjoyed one TW, this TW, I worry about the health of it going forward, and I worry about this being the meta to win. Anyway, that's next. That's what I've discovered on my journey and what I've thought about TW. Any comments below? Keep commenting down below. Keep anything that surprises you or interests you. Give us a shout out. And please join us on Twitch if you want. See more of Welcome to Sandflys. And I'll see you on the next episode of the journey. May the force be with you.